Welcome back to another edition of the Gabagools podcast. I'm your host, Jeff. With me today, as always, the co-host with the most, Dan. How we feeling today? Episode 47,
Co-hostess,
by the way,
co-hostess with the mostest. Yeah, we
but doesn't
are.
eat hostess.
Yeah, not the biggest hostess guy. I'll be honest with you,
Oh,
since you
that was
brought it
just a
up.
guess. That's actually really funny.
Yeah, it's they're all right. I get them, but enough with the hostess cakes here. This is what everybody tunes in for for the beginning of the podcast. We all want to know how is the weather in the Midwest, and I'll let you know how it is. We're basically in a 3-day Arctic freeze, is where we're at. Okay, I'm inside, as you can tell, same area is every week. Decided to put the winter hat on today. Um,
Is that because
Again,
you
I
need a
am
haircut?
inside. Well, the hair is a little bit longer for sure, but it says about 7 degrees out right now, and I love the part underneath it that says the feels like -6. So you gotta love that, right? It's no bueno, as we say, capital no Blaine with the little squiggly over the N, Enyo. Um,
I think it's
just
an enye. I think that's what they call it.
hey, I should know. 3 years of Spanish, but tres años,
Tres años.
as they'd say. But
Yeah,
yeah, it's
cold as balls.
cold as balls. We said that right before we started. Those little emojis when you type "burr" or like "cold" and it's like that blue and he's like freezing.
Yeah.
That's where we're at. I just got a new battery in my car and just starting it this morning, and it was still the doot doot doot.
Oh
So
no.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, luckily, is your car in the garage or are you out in the driveway?
I'm outside. That's why. If you're in the garage, I think they say it's typically like 20 degrees warmer or something in the garage.
Typically, and if
So,
you insulate your garage, and that's one thing I need to do is like insulate my garage door. That's another thing, but we're not going to talk about home additions on this episode of the podcast. Maybe in a future one.
we'll do a home additions for a certain, just a whole podcast because I've got a ton of ideas on home addition.
Yeah, we'll get our construction belts on. We'll wear our white t-shirts, our blue jeans, and they have to be the bluest jeans that we can have possible, and then we'll get some boots on. How about that?
Yeah, and I think the jeans probably have to be Levi's, right? I mean, I don't think they could be any
Yeah.
other brand.
Mhm.
Maybe a Wrangler if you want to get crazy with
I
it,
do
but I
like
think
Wrangler. I do wear Wranglers.
you're a Wrangler man, huh?
Not all of them, but yeah, I have like one or two pairs. I think of Wrangler. I think actually one pair now, and then the other pair I actually, oddly enough, got at Target. Nice pair of jeans.
I just forgot to. I got a couple real quick. I got a couple colder thans. The expression it's colder than whatever. You
Yeah.
know. So before we jump into the first official topic here, we've got a couple colder thans here. I'll hit you with just a few colder than. And I looked these up. These aren't all mine, so don't at me in the comments. All right.
Hey, at least you're
It's
honest.
yeah.
You're citing your sources. If we're taking a high school, grammar, high school English class,
You
all of
bet.
our sources are cited. All right.
I
Proceed.
hated doing that, by the way. But the first one,
Yeah.
colder than a dead man's hand.
Ooh, it's
It's
pretty cold.
colder than a dead man's hand out there. It's that cold. How about it's colder than a mother-in-law's kiss? Man, it is
uh,
colder than a mother-in-law's kiss out there. Oh,
wow.
not good. How about this one? Colder than a Finnish winter. Apparently, the
Finnish.
winters get pretty cold in Finland.
I would imagine. I think it's like Nordic Circle maybe up there. I
They
mean,
say it gets below zero. They mentioned Celsius, and that kind of lost me from there. But colder than a witch's boob. Earmuffs for any of our younger
witch's
audience out
boob.
there. A witch's boob.
Interesting. I don't know.
That one's been passed down in the Hoffman household, so that was kind of one of mine. But all right,
Were you guys witch hunters? I'm guessing.
yeah, I don't know. It went over like a lead balloon, but we'll move on. This is a good one. This is who's my guy? The rapper. He's what's his name?
Chance? Is that-
Andre 3000, I think is his name. Colder than a polar bear's toenail.
yeah, you're a big Black Eyed Peas guy, aren't you?
Well, I mean, hey, Andre. I don't know if he was he Black Eyed Peas?
Yeah, I
I
thought
thought that
so.
was Will I Am.
Oh, maybe that's true.
See, you know what? Now we'll do another pod for pop culture and music, and I'll have
Yeah.
to school you. I'll learn you a few things. But
Oh, there you
uh,
go.
here, this might be. my favorite one right here. Colder than skinny dipping in a snowstorm.
That would be pretty chilly.
That sounds cold. And the last one here, colder than Jack Frost.
Yeah, nipping at your nose.
If you know Jack Frost, he's a chilly man. He's
Yeah.
cold.
Yep, exactly. Well done. Well, jumping into the sports, as we always do, we do a little tribute to the number of podcasts we have out. So, obviously, number 47. One of the memorable ones for football, because I got one for baseball and one for football. We'll start off with football. We're going with John Lynch, the current GM of the 49ers, Super Bowl champion with the 2002 question mark Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Hell of a safety. Played a long time in the league, obviously. Hall of Famer. He played until 2007, where he retired with Denver. But yeah, huge shout out to John Lynch.
John, I know you're watching. Tough year for you guys. This go round. The Sun. Don't know what you're going to do next year. Division's still, very winnable, but hey, you were obviously a pretty good player in your own right. So we'll give you the one of these, the gentleman's whatever they used to do, and
Handshake.
the old tip of the cap to you, Mr. Lynch.
Yep. And then last but not least, got to shout out Tom Glavine.
Tommy.
Tom
Tom
Glavine,
Glavine.
Mr. Two-time Cy Young winner, Hall of Famer, and 1995 World Series champion with the Atlanta Braves.
I'll tell you, Tom Glavine, you bring up Tom Glavine, and I think everyone thinks of the Atlanta Braves when they had the big three with Smoltz, Glavine, and Maddox. And I think they won. Did they win only the one
Yeah,
with
they
those
only won
three?
one. That's
And
insane. It was insane.
that's one of those teams people talk about that say they should have went on a run and they should have won multiple. But hey, you still got the one. But yeah, Glavine was a little before us, I think, but he was
Yeah.
he was pretty good in his own right.
Yeah, that was a team. Just in general, the Braves just was like they went to back to back World Series in 95, 96. They lost, in 96, but they did pull one of them out. But that was a team. If you think back, and I think it was the old Turner Stadium back then too. And I know in the new stadium because I've been to that one is they have all the flags of all the division championships, and it's crazy how many divisions they won in a row. And I was just thinking about how insane that is to always win your division and only get one World Series out of it. And I think that's just like how baseball is and how difficult of a sport it is to kind of repeat and kind of have that longevity. But yeah.
Yeah, great run, obviously, like you said, but it really only matters how many championships you get, and you get the one, that's great. But yeah, should have been. You look
Yeah.
back and you say could have been at least two or three, could have been five with
Yeah.
that group.
Exactly, and that was one of my. What's funny you said that too, because I had a discussion years and years ago with a buddy of mine, and I was like, oh yeah, I wouldn't want to win a division 20 times and only win one World Series out of it. I'd rather make it like once or twice and pull out those World Series victories, because it just takes away from it. It's like, okay, cool, like we're expected to win a division every single year, and you just let it down. So
A lot of letdown when you have all those expectations. When you don't have all those expectations, kind of it's
yeah.
more.
Speaking
You
of
know,
expectations, moving into our new year of 2025, the year of the Los Angeles Dodgers here. So currently, as of yesterday, I looked this up. FanDuel has the Los Angeles Dodgers at an over/under of 103 games of wins. I think they're going to surpass that. I think we're going to talk like 116, bearing like this entire team doesn't get hurt. The team just blows us away with how many stars they keep continuing to sign and defer the money. And my question before we break down some of their players just real briefly, because obviously Sasaki just signed there and that threw us for a loop. You know, I guess you have to kind of question like what are they doing differently than the other teams in the major leagues? Why aren't other teams deferring the money? Why aren't they signing them to bigger deals? Some of these guys are taking discounts, so obviously they just want to win, which rightfully so. That's why you play the game. I guess I pose that question to you. What do you think these other teams are doing? Like Tanner Scott was a surprise yesterday too.
yeah. I mean, maybe a lot of these guys want to play for the Dodgers. Maybe LA's printing money. Seems like they are. You know, Yeah, you would think some of these teams. I mean, the big one is Otani with the deferred money. We know that, but they've got a couple other guys, and most of them aren't too much. But you know, they've got like 100 and I don't know how much it is for Mookie. They got I have it written down. I'll check in a sec, but they've got it's gotten to the point where like I have a disdain for the Dodgers right now. You know,
I think every,
nobody
I think everybody does.
nobody likes this team right now because they have the means to go out and spend all this money. And yeah, they've been able to defer. I think it's just over $1 billion they have now in deferred money. With obviously Otani's the big one, but they've got six other people that they have deferred money to. And um,
Betts has 115 million deferred.
yeah, okay. So yeah, I mean, and he's I think the next biggest one. So you go from like 680, which is Otani's. Obviously, understandably, that one's, I was reading up on that, and that's the one that's like, okay, everybody's eyes pop out of their head. 115 million deferred. I mean, that's still a lot of money deferred, but it's nowhere near Otani's. So, you
Right.
know, um, why aren't other teams doing it? It's a great question. Um,
I mean, you should put your team on the hot seat. They just had Cubs Con this past weekend. They finally righted the wrong. They made Sammy Sosa go to the podium and say, "Hey, all you kill cats and kittens. I did use steroids." And Mr. Ricketts, being the wonderful man that he is for you guys, said, "Okay, Sammy, you could finally come home." I think that's ridiculous because when you think of the Chicago Cubs, especially in the late '90s, you think of Sammy Sosa. You don't think of anyone else. At least I don't. Maybe Kerry would. You can make the argument, but not to the magnitude that Sammy had.
no, Sammy was the team for crying out loud, and he was. You can argue. You know what? We'll have a debate on another podcast with steroids and everyone who
Yeah,
we think should be in. At the end of the day, for me, it's a no-brainer. Sosa is a Hall of Famer. I know people
yeah,
want to say he was just
that's
a
fine.
home run hitter and he didn't, he used or whatever. But, you know, long story short, you hit that many home runs. I don't care. That's, most players in today's game are not going to do that. So
Right.
he had some monster years. You're right. When you think of that era of Cubs baseball, he's at the top of the list. He is the list,
Yeah.
essentially. So, yeah, I mean, do I love the way, yeah, Ricketts wanted him to come out and say some stuff. I don't think he actually said, the words steroids. I don't know exactly what he said, but yeah, I mean, we all know that was his way back in, whatever. But people showed out because
Yeah.
we all love Sammy. I don't want to
Yeah.
speak for everybody
I
on the
think
north
most people
side,
do.
but
Yeah.
I think most people do love the guy, or at least like him enough to want to see him, at some of these things or whatever. So it's cool to see him back this weekend, and
Yeah.
yeah, as far as Ricketts, yeah, you know what? I'd have to get Tommy on the phone and ask him why he doesn't want to spend any money right now.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, and then
he's
that's a
not
funny
helping
thing.
Jed.
No, and what was funny too, and the only reason we're bringing up the Cubs is because just the recency bias. Because he had the headline, I saw it on Twitter, and he of course, Mr. Ricketts is just he always makes I'm calling him Mr. Ricketts. Tom Ricketts makes me laugh the most because he always does it like just like the Marquee Network when everyone booed him for the Marquee Network. Well, what did the Marquee Network do? Mr. Puppet up there. He did something similar this weekend when he basically put fans on the spot and was like, people come up to me all the time and they're like, "Oh, Ricketts, how come you're so cheap? Oh, how come you don't spend on like these big name players?" And they should because it's what the top three city in the United States and a top three market. Why the hell they're not spending, especially with that neighborhood that they just built up? I mean, they're already selling out most games. If they landed an Otani, a Judge, any of those big name players, they sell out every game, hands down. But the only reason I bring that up is because the Dodgers, you know, continue to print money, like we just said, and Roki Sasaki had deals with multiple other teams, the Blue Jays, which that's a dark
Yeah,
horse. I just don't see
yeah,
people going there to
no,
play. just because there's so much speculation on, oh, is Vladdy going to get traded? Is Bichette going to get traded? Are they just, they basically have one more year together, another year that they're going to finish third or fourth in that division.
Might be last.
Yeah. So, of course, it was a pretty easy decision for him to go to the Dodgers because now he gets slot in. And I'm pretty sure, I have to look it up, but I'm pretty sure he's only getting like a minor league contract from them, too. I don't think it's anything.
Yeah, I think it was because technically he wasn't an unrestricted free agent. He was. You got to have enough service time and the age, right, to be like an unrestricted free agent, and he was not, obviously, with age and then service time, I think, as well. So that was my one reason for him to not come over here, because Yamamoto comes over last year, but he's like 2 years older than Sasaki, 3 at the most. He had the service time, he had the age, came over and got $300 million.
Yeah.
And Sasaki's going to get a fraction of that because of the MLB's rules. And that is kind of shitty, I'll be honest with you. But
Yeah.
I guess it's to keep those players in Japan over there a little bit longer so their fans can watch them. I get it. But yeah, that was why I wasn't sure Sasaki was even going to sign this year, because he's leaving $200 million probably on the table. He becomes a free agent in 28, but that's after you've been here for, I think, like 6 years.
Yeah.
So he's going to be like 30 by then,
Yeah, and he's also going to get that, and they'll probably extend him at some point too. They'll do
I'm
something,
sure.
and he'll get his money, obviously. But he's getting like a $6.5 million signing bonus to go there, and he's going to win 2 or 3 championships in this window with the Dodgers. Like, hopefully everyone was smart and put those future bets on him. But yeah, unfortunately, we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on the Dodgers. But it's just one of those things where they sign everybody, and you almost have to laugh because they just signed Tanner Scott, like I mentioned earlier. The Cubs were in on him, and I forgot who else. Somebody else made him a bigger deal, but he wanted to go play with the Dodgers because he knows he's going to win. And he doesn't even have to be the closer, because the way Dave Roberts operates, he just throws anybody out there to close. I mean, I think he had Michael Kopech close a couple times this year.
You know what, though? If you've got a big-time closer, and they had Kenley a couple years ago, if you've got a big-time person, I don't know if Tanner Scott's that big of a name. I don't know if his pedigree's been there for that many years in a row, but he's coming off some good years, and it's like just another guy for the Dodgers to go out and get. You know what I mean?
It's a joke. I mean, you see the headline, you see somebody signed. Like today, I was expecting Santander to sign there for whatever reason. Luckily, no, he went to Toronto, and he's going to hit like 50 bombs there, so that's cool. But yeah, it's annoying. It's a nuisance. It's kind of ruining the game of baseball with all the deferred money. And you know what? At some point, the MLB needs to step in and be like, hey, because the Dodgers are going to basically do what the Yankees did in the 90s, in the early 2000s, and just buy these players and win multiple championships in a row. I mean, they won last year. They're going to probably win again this year, bearing like Ohtani doesn't get hurt, obviously.
It's almost crazier, though, because, I mean, money's much bigger than it is now than it was with the Yankees. And I don't know if the Yankees were doing all this deferred money. I don't think they really were.
I don't think so. I don't think so either. They just paid the players, and people also just wanted to play there, because that was the thing, is you go for the brand, and that's why people went to the Yankees. And now it's like, you see the Yankees and they sign like, they're not getting these big fish like they did. They had to trade for Soto, and he still left them to go to the Mets of all teams.
You know what? The Yankees have done some good. They've done some good things this offseason, though. They didn't get Soto, sure, but they've gotten some other people that they signed Max Fried. They went out and spent that money other ways. So
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, what are you gonna do?
Nothing at all. But you know what? We'll see once the MLB season kind of kicks off a little bit more in the next month or so. We can go in there. But any closing points you got?
When it comes to the Dodgers too, I think Mark Pryor is still the pitching coach over there. I think even before Pryor was there, their pitchers were hurt every year.
Yeah.
So their starting 5 starting the year is probably going to be the best in the sport. But what are you going to get from some of these guys? And one more note on Sasaki, I think the most innings he's thrown is anywhere from like 110 to 130. So yeah. He's another guy, he's really young. Yeah, he's going to step into that rotation, but he's going to take a couple of years to really get the innings up. He's probably going to go once a week. Yamamoto, yeah. I don't know how many innings he threw this last year, but, they'll probably try to build him up a little more. But you still got everybody else who's injured over there. Kershaw's been hurt every year. Are they going to bring
He's
him
a free
back?
agent right now. He's not
Right.
even
I
on the
mean,
team. Yeah,
he he might have had another surgery too, so he might not
he had
even
a
be ready
couple.
for the start of the year. But you still got all the other guys, and a lot of their other young guys like May and Gonsolin are coming off,
Knack,
TJs as well. So
yeah, Knack's still there. Bobby Miller. And I think I read too that they're going to go to like 6-man rotation, kind of
they're
similar
probably
to
going to
what
have like a 12-man rotation.
which honestly, it's going to be good because you're going to get like Otani's preserve then, and then Yamamoto. All these guys are going to build up to that, and I wouldn't be shocked if you start seeing that kind of across the MLB, where you start seeing these piggyback starts, where you have that dominant pitcher go like 4 or 5 innings, and then you have like a dominant reliever, or that was a starter, or is a could be slotted in as a starter, go like four, the remaining four, and unless it's a close game, then you bring in your closer, but you know. That,
Interesting.
kind of more of a playoff format, like the way that they do it in the playoffs. I mean, it's a long way to do. It's a long time to do that, but you're preserving innings, and you might get a little bit more out of Otani that way before he goes to the bullpen.
You're thinking very new age, very analytical.
Yeah, try to. But yeah, all right. We'll cut it off there for that, and then we'll jump over to the NFL divisional round weekend. Do you have your fastest 20 seconds here?
You know what? I just had some notes on both teams, so I don't necessarily have like a big
All right, that's fine. We
headline.
could just jump
But
in. We'll
yeah,
jump in with the first game here. We got Kansas City taking on the Houston Texans. Obviously, Kansas City won. That's not a shocker. Game was a lot closer than the score would be. Basically, the game was a lot closer than the score even. KC won 23-14. CJ Stroud, I'm pretty sure Houston outgained in yards the Chiefs the entire game. But the Mahomes magic of the refs, I should say, um, outlasted the Texans.
yeah. Kansas City is God. They just continue to get the job done. I don't know when you start looking at the stats too. It's like you, you're kind of mind boggled with how they've got to 15-2, and they got the number one overall seed, and they continue to win. I looked up a couple things here. First of all, I think this is kind of interesting. This is just a Hoff stat, if you will. Yeah, we'll leave it at the Hoff stat. But we've got a team with 12 wins, 13, 14, and 15. So kind of interesting. Aside from Detroit and Minnesota, you've got four of the top six best records in the NFL that are still remaining. Um, you've got your rookie of the year that we still have alive. Jaden's going to win that, and then potentially still have the MVP going with Joshy Boy. We'll see if he takes it. Um, and some of the statistics, mainly for the regular season, that kind of mind boggle me with Kansas City as well. The offensive stat, total yards per game, Kansas City ranked 17th, I believe, on offense for total yards per game during the regular season. So 17th, you're like, okay, that's not great. The other teams that are still in it, Washington 7, Philly 8, Buffalo was 10. So three other teams top 10. You got total yards per game on defense, right? Philly number one. They don't give you anything per game. KC was 9. Okay. Washington 13, Buffalo 17. The takeaways is interesting too. Buffalo number one on defense with takeaways. Philly sixth. Kansas City 12. Washington 15. So you look at some of these and you're like, you would have thought Kansas City's defense was maybe carrying them throughout the year, and not that their defense is bad, but were they really that good, especially compared to some of the other teams that are still in there? I don't know how the hell they're 15-2. I know
I,
you can sit there and say
I
the
think
refs have.
it's Spagnola too. I was going to give Spagnola his flowers. Their defensive coordinator is just elite, and he just knows how to adapt the game to what they have and what they need to stop some of these, stars. I mean, they did it to Burrow. They've done it to like pretty much everybody all season long. A couple of the losses that they had were just dart throws. So, but one stat I think can to answer your question, how are they 15-2? I will tell you. So there's been 280 turnovers in the NFL since week 12. The Chiefs have committed zero of them. That's 8 straight games without a turnover, which is the longest streak by any team in the Super Bowl era, including the playoffs.
Well, you know what? The turnovers and the takeaways are kind of the interesting thing that I was looking up on, especially in the playoffs. Casey's only played one game, having the bye, but they didn't have any turnovers in their game. And the other three teams in the playoffs, Washington, Philly, and Buffalo, none of them have given the ball away either, and they've all played two games. So that's gonna something's gonna have to break, right? Someone's gonna turn the
Yeah,
ball over. That's what's gonna probably win or lose some of these next games. But you talk about playing your best, cleanest football. We've got four teams right now that are playing exceptionally well. The other teams on defense have created some turnovers, but on offense, none of these teams have, I think, turned the ball over in the playoffs. And then 8 straight games for Kansas City. That is quite telling.
yeah. I mean, and also you have to give it to you know, C.J. Stroud kind of played a. He didn't throw for a touchdown. He didn't throw for an interception. So he didn't really. He did fumble. He didn't lose it though, but still, like no turnovers in the game, and you still lose. That's tough. I mean,
They
there was
sacked
a
him at
couple.
least 7 or 8 times, though. I mean, they that
Yeah.
Houston's O line was non-existent in that game. Kansas City, when they wanted to, they got through. So
Yeah, and you know what too is the kickoff returns that Kansas City had put their defense, put Houston's defense into a rough spot, and not scoring a touchdown. You're not going to beat the Chiefs.
yeah,
You're not throwing for a touchdown, I should say, because Joe Mixon obviously did get one. But that's the tough part with the Chiefs, and we're seeing something pretty crazy. Probably not since Brady, since 2018 when Mahomes took over as the starter. They've made the AFC Championship like 7 years in a row, roughly. When he came in, they lost in 2018. They lost the conference championship to Brady and the Patriots. They won the Super Bowl that year. Next year, Kansas City won the Super Bowl in 2019. 2020, they lost the Super Bowl to Brady with Tampa Bay. 2021, they lost in the conference championship to Joe Burrow. 2022, 2023, they obviously won the Super Bowl. So, you can't say enough about Mahomes. And I think overall, he's just adapted as a player because before, you saw him just throw it deep to Tyreek Hill every time. And that was why he was having these 500-yard games, 4 touchdowns, whatever. He's not that same player anymore where you're seeing him light you up for 31 points in a quarter. He's just not doing that anymore because teams got smart and played cover two, and they kind of eliminate that deep ball. It happens still, but he doesn't have Tyreek Hill out there to do it. But Travis Kelsey too. You have to give Travis Kelsey his flowers. I think he had like 14 or so games in a row where he's had over 100 yards receiving.
I did not know that either. Yeah, you know what? They're just like the little engine that could. They just keep chugging. They keep finding ways to upset people because they have become the new Patriots and the Tom Brady of this era, if you will. So yeah, you're right. Seven AFC championships in a row. That's quite a feat. Going for three in a row. It's tough to see anybody taking them down, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's tough when you have to face the refs too. I mean, in Kansas City, but we'll see if the
Yeah.
Bills can take them out. We'll touch on that later. But next game, the upset of the week, obviously, you got the Commanders pulling out the 45-31 win at the Detroit Lions. The last time we'll see Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn as those head coach or offensive coordinator and defensive coordinators for the Lions. So. One note I will say, you can't turn the ball over as many times as Jared Goff did.
Yeah.
3 interceptions, one
That's it.
for a pick six. That was the difference maker. I mean, it was a closer
Yep.
game. Can't be sloppy with the ball. And I think near the end of the game, too, Ben Johnson got too cute with their little trick plays, and it came back to bite them. And that's kind of always been an issue with, trick plays is when you get too fancy and when it's crunch time. That could honestly affect him getting some of these jobs. He's going to get one, but I mean, some of these coaches might be like, well, our owners might be like, I don't know about that now. But, just a quick stat too. Obviously, Jameer Gibbs, 14 carries for 105 and 2 on the ground, and he was just electric. I think, everyone was kind of skeptical when they drafted him 13th overall. You know, you have to give them the credit. They found a diamond in the rough for sure.
Now Gibbs has been the man for sure. I mean, and that tandem with him and Montgomery has been lights out. Essentially, you've got two great backs, and Gibbs. I think everybody's kind of known how good Gibbs is when you see him on the field, but he's taken that backfield over for sure. I mean, he's Montgomery's still a stud, but Gibbs is great. Just like you said, you know what? There's been a few games where there's been a few too many turnovers. You can't turn the ball over in the regular season, let alone the playoffs when you got better teams coming at you. So,
Yep.
yeah, too many picks from Goff. I found it interesting. We'll get into the Baltimore game in a sec, but I think when you looked at Detroit and Baltimore, those were the two highest flying offenses in the league, and they're both out. So I
Yep.
think it's coming down to, yeah, the offense it's great, it's sexy, but it's something about the defense, man. People say, when you get older, you start thinking like your dad. It's like, what did dad say? Defense wins championships,
Yep.
And you know what? There is some truth to that. So,
You got to be
yeah,
disciplined too. Yeah, I mean, it just comes back to discipline, and the Lions kind of got undisciplined, and people can make that excuse. Oh, well, their whole defense was on the IR. Yeah, that's true, but they went 15-2 for a reason. So, but hats off to the Commanders too. I mean, Jaden Daniels kind of proving why he was picked. What was it, second overall? And he had the year. He had Dan Quinn, because I really do hate the comparison too of like, oh well, he should have been picked number one. Here's the thing: if he went to the Bears, he'd be doing the same damn thing
yeah,
that Caleb
right.
Williams did. Want to know why? Because he had an established coach with Dan Quinn, who's
Yep.
been there, done that, had that longevity. Brought in Cliff Kingsbury, who was an offensive guru. He was awesome in college. He went up to the NFL, was a head coach with Arizona, might be a head coach again soon. He actually went to the Commanders instead of becoming a head coach. So, it just speaks volumes. And then he unlocks Terry McLaurin too, so he had his number one receiver. He had pretty much everything you want in a QB. So,
Yeah, you know what? You gotta tip your cap to Washington. For Detroit, you can't give up 40, 45 points, whatever it is, and expect to win. I mean, they could win if their offense didn't turn it over that much because their offense is that good. But I don't care who you are, you can't give up that many points. On the flip side, Washington is one of those teams that can beat anyone in the league. They have the quarterback to do it. They have enough people on offense.
yeah.
Will they? They got to go out there and play their game. But you know what? I have not picked them the last 2 weeks. I don't know if I want to jinx them and pick them this week. I wanted to pick them against Tampa Bay. They
Yeah.
won by a field goal. I had a weird feeling about that Detroit game, but I think 90% of me was just with the rest of the world thinking Detroit's going to run all over them. And this next game, man, I just don't know. And you got your rivals playing. We'll get into
Division
that
rival.
game,
Yeah.
but man, it's setting the stage for quite a next good weekend, right? I mean,
Absolutely. And when you brought it up, though, you said it best with running all over. Saquon Barkley ran all over. We're going to transition into that game, but Saquon Barkley ran all over the Rams for the second time. 26 carries for 205 yards and 2 touchdowns. And he put 4 receptions for 27 yards, and that's nothing. But you know, talk about paying the guy and we're letting him be unleashed. He is just proving everybody wrong. I would hate to be a Giants fan right now. Could you imagine, like, just watch? I mean, I've had my time to do it with players leave and be superstars, but not to Saquon's level. Saquon Barkley is going to go down in history as one of the best running backs of all time.
okay, first of all, that's a hot take. We're gonna write that
I said
down.
one. I said one of them. But
That's a
yeah, go
hot
ahead.
take. We're gonna write that next to Slobber Knocker from last week. Um, you know what? Saquon is the man. He got to Philly, and everyone basically just said, "Let him cook." Right? And he's been cooking all year. If they would have let him play week 17, you know what? He would have set the record. He would have beat Eric Dickerson. He would have broke that record. And you know what? He didn't. And look at what he does yesterday. I mean, he's he's a stud. We've seen it for a while. It's been tough for him to stay on the field, but when he's on the field, he's fabulous. He's fantastic. And
I gotta ask you too. Do you like these snow games?
oh, yeah, for playoff football, it's the best. Snow
It's so much fun
football.
to watch.
Oh
And
my
like
God.
the nice thing about that game too is the Rams. I mean, it wasn't as close. Um, it wasn't as close as the score led us to believe either. But I mean, Matthew Stafford threw for 324 yards and 2 touchdowns, which is just insane to me. I think a couple turnovers, the fumbles. Stafford lost two of them, or lost one, and then Kyron Williams also lost a huge critical one too that would have put them up. But you know, it's kind of crazy in a snow game. You don't think of player or quarterbacks specifically throwing for as many yards as they did, but you have to contribute that to Puka Nakua.
Yeah, you know what? The Rams, their run comes to an end, unfortunately.
I know.
Fun team to
Sad day.
watch. Fun team to watch, but Philly was the better team. And you know what can you say about future Hall of Famer Matt Stafford? Right? I mean, the guy's been a stud since he came into the league. He's been great for LA the last couple, and he had Megatron to throw to all those years, and I think that's still his guy. But man, he's had Cup and Nakua these last few, and I've been saying it not only to you but to other people. As far as a tandem receiver goes, 1-2 and a quarterback, I don't know if it gets much better than that. You could talk about Burrow with Chase and Higgins.
Yeah,
I know you were going there because you love Burrow and Chase,
I do.
but I tell you, man, it doesn't. If it gets any better than Stafford, Cup, and Nakua, it's about this much better. Those three are a match made in heaven.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Cup has really taken a backseat like the last 10 or so games, too, where he hasn't really done much and kind of screwed a lot of people in the fantasy playoffs, too, me included. But still, nevertheless, we'll see how long Stafford's got left. I think he comes
Yeah.
back. I think as long as McVay's there, he will come back. But we'll see what that team looks like. That defense is nasty. We will give out that little flower to Jared Verse. So when he was chasing down Saquon Barkley on that long TD, he got up to 21.6 miles per hour, which is faster than Xavier Worthy this season, which he hit 21.46.
You know
Pretty
what?
fast.
I'm not usually one for tenths, and decimals and all that. But anything over, I would say probably. I don't know how fast I can run now. I'm not in the league, but I'd like to say I can go at least 10. Right? I'd like to say upwards of 15. Now I don't know how fast 15 is running. Let
Pretty
me
fast.
stretch out before. I'll put my running shoes on. I'll get on the track. I'll get moving. But 21. I mean, in some areas, they want you to go under 20. The speed limit's 20. So this guy was speeding in residential. I mean, that's something.
And he's also a linebacker slash like defensive end. So like and he's a rookie too. So pretty insane. Just to see, got to give our flowers out to them. The Rams defense, they really did show up. Unfortunately, not the result that they want, but Philly takes on the division rival Commanders. Last game of the divisional round, Baltimore at Buffalo. Buffalo won 27-25. Mark Andrews had a couple of big drops and a fumble in this game. The last play of the game basically could have been caught in the 2-point conversion to tie it. A little outside of his reach, maybe. I have to rewatch it exactly to see, but either way, once again, playoff Lamar kind of just took over, and nothing against him. It's just, this is kind of just a similar thing that we've seen, where teams can adapt to how to beat Lamar. And one of the stats I saw was Buffalo just blitzed the hell out of them. I think they said their blitz rate was like over 50%. So when you're constantly getting pressured, and that was another snow game, when you can't get comfortable and establish the run like that, it does make it a little bit more difficult to win these games.
Yeah, I said last week if Baltimore got Henry involved and they got him going, I didn't think Buffalo would be able to stop him. Buffalo's a great team. Josh Allen puts the team on his back, and you know what? This was a heavyweight fight. This was George Foreman, Muhammad Ali. That's what this
Yep,
was, right? And
absolutely.
Baltimore, man, you could say I don't know how many drops Andrews had in the game, but obviously everyone's going to remember that one right there at the end. It looked like you're tying the game, and then honestly, there was like a minute and a half left in that game. You're thinking Buffalo's got more than enough time to go down the field with a minute and a half, score and end the game. So, um, I was getting ready for that, and then you see him drop that, and you're like, oh man, this is this is not to be. So, yeah, bit of a heartbreaker for all you Ravens fans out there. What can you say? I felt like either of those teams had a really good chance at beating the Chiefs this next week.
Yep.
Um, Buffalo gets that chance, and you know what? That to me, I know Baltimore's had some big games with Kansas City as well, but it feels like to me Buffalo and Kansas City's kind of been similar to Brady and Roethlisberger. It seemed like it was, New England.
Interesting.
Well,
I,
it seemed like back in the day, with the AFC, you had like those two teams, right? You had New England and you had Pittsburgh, and you always had to go through New England. Same thing, Buffalo. They got to go through
I would
Kansas
have gone
City.
with Indianapolis too.
Well,
I'd,
you know what? They won one though, right? Didn't I think Pittsburgh won two?
yeah, I mean, I guess I would argue just my statement on this one. Pittsburgh was the only kind of kryptonite outside of our Lord and Savior Joe Flacco. And Mark Sanchez also another one that beat Brady twice.
Yeah, there
Twice.
you go. Yeah, you had to throw that one in there, didn't you?
Of course, let me have my wins when I can get them. Anyway, jumping back on track with it, where I'm going is that Peyton Manning kind of has a similar um, record. Like when it was Brady versus Manning, I felt like in the regular season, you saw the Colts kind of have that. And that's kind of what we're here right here with Josh Allen and the Bills. They can beat them in the regular season. I think they're like 4-1 or 4-0 against them in the regular season. But as soon as it comes playoff time, as we were probably going to as well, is that
Yeah.
Mahomes pulls it out every single time, and it's been I think since like 2020, and then the only year they didn't play was like 2022. But every single year, it's like clockwork. You just see them, face off in the playoffs, and Mahomes gets the edge. So, is this going to be the year that they finally do it? The Bills finally kind of take that leap forward.
Yeah, and like on paper, it seems like it could be that year, right? Because like when you start looking at the stats, you look at Kansas City and the offense isn't like you said, it hasn't been nearly as explosive. They're not scoring as many points, but
Yeah,
they don't have to when you go 15-2. So, uh, but yeah, I mean that we just mentioned a heavyweight fight. This is going to be the real. This is going to be your. I just mentioned Foreman and Ali. Maybe Ali Frazier. I don't know if that would be any bigger. Maybe Foreman Ali is bigger, but either
not much
way,
of a
I mean,
boxer, not much of a boxing fan, so I don't know.
this would be like Conor McGregor and John Jones if they were in the same weight class.
I mean, you have to give it to John Jones easily.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, I might not like the guy that much, but
No, you don't have to like him. We just know that he would kick
he's
his
he's
ass.
something. Yeah, we get it.
Anyway, yeah, obviously, let's jump into our picks of the week. We'll go. We'll start off with Commanders at Philly. Divisional matchup. They split the season series. Um, I have to go with Philly. I think this is going to be a rematch. I don't want it to be, but it's going to be a rematch of the Super Bowl a couple years ago when Philly faced off against Kansas City. So give me Philly in this game. I think Saquon's going to be too much for Commanders.
I want to take
Take them, take
Washington,
them, take them.
but
Why not? Why not? No one's gonna shit on you.
no, I know. I
Let's do
feel
it.
like I feel. Oh, you know what? All right, you know what? I'll take Washington. I don't want to jinx them though. That's my thing.
Oh,
I
okay.
haven't
I mean,
taken them the
well,
last
go
2 weeks, and
and then pick Philly then, because if you don't want to jinx them,
I had Philly written down as my pick. I don't want to jinx you, Washington. So what we'll do is I'm going to take Philly, but secretly, Washington. I kind of had you secret. It's like a secret pick, but I don't want anyone to know that because you know With my luck, who knows? But Washington, go out there and shock the world again.
Yeah, there you go. And then we got the game of the week. We got Buffalo at Kansas City. Allen, the MVP front runner against Mahomes. Does
I'm
this
going
finally
Buffalo.
happen? Do we
I'm
finally
going
see
Buffalo.
Buffalo take them?
I'm going
Watch,
Buffalo.
you're
I
going with
have I have a bad feeling Kansas City is going to win, but I'm going Buffalo because I think they're on a roll. They got something this year. I think, you know, Josh mentioned it, I think, at the end of the game against Baltimore last night about how people keep doubting them or whatever. So they got that mentality. They got that little swagger. They're hey, you know what? You can roll your eyes all you want. I'm going to mention this one too. Joshy Boy's in his little lovey love stage with his girl Haley Steinfeld. So maybe there's something there too. Josh is going home at night. It's like, hey, I got my woman here. Maybe there's something to that. I don't know. I'm not a crystal ball. I'm not a magic eight. You can't shake me up and get an answer. But
maybe we need to.
don't get any frisky ideas over there,
I
Gabagool.
mean,
But
realistically, we were looking for a comparison. It's Haley Steinfeld versus Taylor Swift. I'm going with the Chiefs, keeping it simple. They're getting the three-peat. I have this
that's a good one.
conspiracy theory in my head that Goodell's trying to not erase the New England Patriots dynasty, but they want to start that new dynasty. They want to have that first three-peat, and who better than Andy Reid and the Chiefs? I just think the Chiefs have too many weapons, and honestly, they have the refs on their side. It. Everyone always gives me the same reaction too. They're like, "Oh, really? The refs?" I'm like, "Yeah." I mean, how many missed calls or how many soft calls? You can't touch Mahomes, and I think it's gonna be a good game. I think if it's close, Kansas City takes the edge. So if Buffalo wants any sort of chance to win this game, they need to get out there and score quick.
And they did that when they played them in the regular season. So hopefully they've learned, and they've got the people to do it. Let's not be
No, they're
don't be
good. They're a
counting out the
talented
Bills
team. I
Mafia.
also can't pick the Bills. I mean, I'm a Jets fan. I can't pick them. I unfortunately can't do it.
Oh yeah, that's right. Jets.
Just suck. But yeah. Anyway, yeah. So that's the NFL. A couple of head coach vacancies should be opening up or filling up this week. Obviously, Mike Vrabel signed last week or 2 weeks ago back with the Patriots. That was the least shocking news I think for everybody.
Yeah,
As soon as they fired, their head coach. I think that's going to be a great, signing for Drake
signing.
May. I think Drake
Yeah.
May is going to skyrocket up fantasy boards now. I also think he's just going to, he's going to ascend to be a top 10 quarterback probably in the next year. Just because they're going to add weapons. They have the cap room. They have everything. I think they're going to be super efficient. They're going to establish the run. And I think that's just going to be a great, landing spot for any wide receivers, even in the
That
draft.
is that's your second hot take. First one was Saquon being a top elite back or whatever. I don't know if it was top 10 or whatever your
I
words
said
were.
top one of the best, one of the greatest. I said
You
one of the
did,
greatest.
yeah. Your words were pretty up there. And Drake May, you said in the next was that two
Next
years?
year,
Was it
I'll say next year.
top 10? All right.
I think he gets a couple wide receivers. I think New England's going to be super aggressive this offseason. I think they're tired of losing. So, yeah. A little prediction. Obviously, Ben Johnson's the bell of the ball for a lot of teams. You have the Raiders who want him, the Jacksonville Jaguars who want him, and then obviously our Chicago Bears. They want him. The better situation. You already have your QB in place. Obviously, you have to give that to the Bears. I think they can do a lot with that team. The Raiders have a lot of money. They have Tom Brady as their owner. Probably a little bit more flexibility, but they have to find a QB. They kind of have to establish that offense and get it going. He could be the guy to do that, but also Jacksonville is a great landing spot for him with Trevor Lawrence. Maybe he can finally unlock that team. Prediction: he goes to the Raiders. Sorry, I have this this deep down feeling that he's going to Jacksonville, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's the Raiders. Sorry, Bears fans. I think you guys are going to have to settle for the next consolation prize, which is Mike McCarthy.
Oh, Michael. Well, I don't know if I'd love that one.
It's not a sexy name. It's a guy. Let me sell you on it. It's a guy who's established. He's an established winner. I mean, he won a Super Bowl with the Packers. He knows the NFC North. He honestly, I don't think really been the problem with the Cowboys. He's made it to the playoffs how many times? He could probably do some wonders for Caleb. I mean, anybody could at this point.
Yeah, we need somebody else. Let's put it this way. Thomas Brown, I think that's the
Ship has
interim.
sailed. Yeah, ship
Yeah,
has sailed.
yeah. So anyone other than Thomas Brown, hell, I'll take you.
Yeah. Well, I'll actually pass on that job. I'll pass on it.
Okay, all right.
And then obviously Saints have an opening too. If the Bears end up somehow signing Ben Johnson, I could see McCarthy going there. I really hope it's not the guy I want for my New York Jets, which is Aaron Glenn, former New York Jet defensive coordinator, currently for the Lions. He's having his second interview either today or this week. I think it's today. So hopefully we can just wrap this up with a nice bow, get him in there. Hopefully get a GM in there soon and talk to Aaron Rodgers. Let's, run it back one more year until we can get a quarterback to replace him. But we'll see. And then obviously the biggest job that's out there probably is the Dallas Cowboy job, which I forgot to mention last week too. Deion Sanders might take that job, which would not be shocking. And I'm going to take this prediction, so get your red pen ready. If Deion Sanders goes to the Cowboys will trade up to either pick 1 or pick 2. They will trade away Dak Prescott and draft Shadir Sanders.
Neon Dion.
Neon Dion. So I think that's going to be one of the biggest things you're going to see this offseason. If the Cowboys if they go after Dion, they're taking Sanders. No doubt in my mind.
You know what? That's an interesting one because your buddy Dion Primetime just got to college. He was just coaching there, and now I have heard like a rumor or something that maybe he'd want to go to the NFL or something. And I mean, why? People are getting paid a ton in
He wants to
college.
be with his son. He
I know
wants to
the
make his
college
son
game
look.
is.
He wants to make his son look good. He can protect his son. That's what he wants to do. And I'm telling you now, too, this is what's going to happen. He's going to draft his son. Like, he's going to draft Shadir early, like in the top 10 pick. And then what he's going to do with a later round pick is draft Shiloh so he can like have his sons and coach his sons through college and for NFL. It's just what's going to happen, unfortunately.
Hmm. Well, we'll see if prediction Jeffrey is right on this one. We've got 3 hot takes just from this pod alone. Saquon, Drake May, and we got primetime Neon Dion potentially going to the Cowboys, trading up for his son.
Yep. I think that's
So
what's going to happen. So we can close it out there if you got any closing arguments. I know we have the national championship tonight at 6:30.
7:30.
Oh, yeah, 7:30 Eastern. But, yeah. So any predictions for that one?
ESPN, ESPN, Hotlanta, Georgia. Don't like either team, but I went to one of my dispensaries last week, and the guy at the register had an Ohio State hat on. So I said, you know what? You work here. You got my vote, I guess. So we're going with the Buckeye Nation tonight, and Notre Dame. Sorry, fighting Irish. It just wasn't your year. Sorry, Sean. He's a big Notre Dame fan, and when you take one look at Sean, we call him Big Red, Big Rojo sometimes, Grande Rojo. He looks like an Irishman because he is an Irishman. So, you know what? Him and his little leprechauns, it's not going to be the year. Sorry.
Can I just pick one? Can I pick both those teams to lose? Am I allowed to do that? Is that one of my picks?
I think one team has to win. Unfortunately, if both teams could lose, that would be something. If we play 8 overtimes and people say, you know what, nobody wants to see this anymore. You guys both suck. You shouldn't have been here. Go home. Try again next year.
All right, so if I have to pick one, I'm going to jump on the bandwagon with you too, with Ohio State. Sorry to the blocks and pretty much everyone from the Chicagoland area. I don't know why everyone likes Notre Dame. It's an Indiana school. I don't know. Find something else.
I think Ohio State's a pretty big favorite too, aren't they? Like a 7 or 8.5 point.
I think it's like 8.5, which is insane.
Yeah, it's a big favorite.
I would take Notre Dame 8.5 plus 8.5 all day.
Yeah.
That seems like it's easy money to me, just because
Are
the
you
way
putting a
Notre
bet on that?
I was debating. I didn't bet anything this past weekend, so I might. I mean, I'll tail it just because like I think it's going to happen with the. I'll give them the points, but I think Ohio State wins. But I'll take Notre Dame plus 8.5, 100%. That's a lot of points.
So I know that's the thing. I mean, my goodness.
Yeah. So we'll see.
Maybe.
We'll see what happens. I mean, I hate Notre Dame more than I hate Ohio State. Obviously Notre Dame's a USC rival. So
That's right. That's right. That's why. There you go.
yep. So go Buckeyes, I guess. Shout out Austin.
Ryan
Hey,
Day. Let's
yep,
win one, huh?
yep.